I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Brandon Curry has entered the chat again. After spending the last few weeks keeping a relatively low profile, Brandon caught his fans by surprise when he released some new behind-the-scenes training content last week. While on one hand, I'm sure there are plenty of Brandon supporters out there who would have loved for this to be a prep video detailing his run up to the IFBB Arnold Classic. On the other hand, deciding to take a full off-season to give his body a chance to reset was probably the right move here, because the last 12 months were a major grind, because he was essentially in one prep or another all year long. But if he can put together a solid stretch and target his focus on a few key areas, you can't rule out the possibility of him pushing for a top 3 spot again at this year's Olympia. And since we're already talking about guys who are going to be the beneficiaries of an extended off-season, we might as well segue into this update from Charles Griffin, because he falls under the same umbrella as Brandon in that regard. In a lot of ways, 2022 is a career year for Charles, and not just because of his placings. He also showed a real commitment to his craft with the way that he reinvented himself. The way that he was able to pack on a ton of quality size, deliver the best conditioning of his pro career, and tighten up his waist was really a revelation, because he looked like a completely different competitor than what we saw a few seasons ago. For him, jumping into the Arnold might have been too quick of a turnaround, because he seems to do better when he can utilize the slow burn effect with his off-season programming. And if he can even come close to replicating the sort of progress that he made in 2022, he's going to be a handful to deal with at some point later this season. Because the men's open lineup at the Arnold Classic is so top-heavy now, trying to crack the top 3 there is going to be tough sledding, which means the real action comes when you're trying to sort out the mess that's going to be all those spots in the 4 through 6 range. But I'll tell you what, I think people would be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't give Patrick Moore a puncher's chance to be a dark horse contender. Out of all the guys on the roster, his body has the least amount of wear and tear in it because of how long he's been out. Not to mention the fact that he also put that time off to good use, because all the early signs point to him clearly being better than he was back in 21. He's always had all the tools, but he just didn't have enough size to compete at some of the deeper shows. So if his conditioning is on point here, it isn't inconceivable that we see him find a way to insert himself into one of those 4 through 6 spots that are up for grabs. And our final update of the day comes to you courtesy of none other than Big Ramy, who made headlines earlier this week when word broke that he was going to have stem cell treatment to combat nerve damage that he's been dealing with for the last several months. Now, in and of itself, the fact that he's getting stem cell treatment doesn't mean much as far as this Arnold Classic prep is concerned, but it might be a little bit of an indicator about some of the limitations he was dealing with during the run leading up to his title defense in December. The fact that he's getting the treatment now probably won't have any real bearing on what he does with his physique and his prep over the next 5 or 6 weeks, but the ability to rehab the injury and get back to being 100% is something we're going to keep an eye on throughout the year, because another loss in November effectively closes the door on his championship window. And the truth of the matter is, at this point in his career, if Ramy is not 100%, he just doesn't have the juice to be able to pull out wins at these big shows. But if he can get himself back on track and put together a solid stretch of training, it should give him a chance to redeem himself come November. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.